All right, let's jump into Introduction to Statistics. Measures of central tendency is just a fancy way of saying mean, median, and mode. Those three terms are how we measure where the center of a set of data is. And as we go through this, we'll talk about what mean, median, and mode are. Probably you remember some of it. Yep. Range is a measure of spread. How spread out is the data? And these are just the measure of where is the center of the data. Okay? But when you were in middle school, we lumped mean, median, mode, and range all together. Thank you. So it's a little confusing. So the first thing that we're going to do is make sure we have a collection of data to work with. And every time in algebra, you're going to be given that set of data. It's usually in the form of the tables. So like you see here in number 1, we have speed and the number of cars. We're going to organize this into some sort of a table, chart, and or graphs. And we're going to be doing graphs. If you look at our agenda, we do box and whisker plots later this week. They're probably the easiest ones you might ever do in your life. And then we're supposed to be able to make some conclusions or some sort of analysis of this data. So the first thing we're going to do is use this data. We have 20 vehicles. We're going to find the mean, median, and mode. Okay? So I want to introduce you to a new symbol. X with a bar over the top is what we call in high school the mean. It's just a shortcut. Mathematicians were the first people to ever do like your shortcut lingo. It's like the letter R for A-R-E when you text message. We were the first ones to come up with some of that shortcut stuff. And this is our first shortcut. The median is the middle. So our data has to be in order. And that's one place that they can trick you, is to not give you the data in order. In this case, they have given us the speed in order. And that's what we're looking at. That's the data that we collected, was the speed. The number of cars is our frequency, how many cars were at that speed. So then mode is most often. Which speed was recorded most often for this data? Mode is probably the easiest of the measures of center that you can find. So which car or which speed had the most cars recorded? Yes. So 35 had 5 cars recorded for that speed. So 35 is our mode. It's what occurred most often. Can we find the middle? Yes, we can. There's a few different ways. Maybe you already have some methods. I like to let my fingers do the walking. So I start at the very top and I start at the very bottom, if you will. Okay, now be careful. I said top and bottom and pointed at the bottom and then the top. Okay? My bottom speed, the slowest car, is at the top of your table. Sometimes when you look at that, you think, oh, that's the bottom, or it's the bottom, but it's really at the top of the table. So sometimes that can be confusing. I have 1 car at each place. So essentially they're going to cancel each other out. And then I move my finger to the next. I have 2 cars at each place. Now it's going to get a little tricky. I have to actually start thinking. Whoops, I have 4 cars at the bottom speed, but I only have 2 cars at my top speed. So I'm going to cross out these 2. And then I'm going to write a 2 here. Now, you don't have to write that 2. Some of you can keep that 2 mentally in your head. Okay? That's great. So now I'm at 3 for my top speed, but I'm only at 2 for my bottom speed. So these 3 are gone. That 2 is gone, and this 5 is now a 4.
Wait, what?
Okay? I'll say it again. Let me do it again.
I understood.
Thank you. So we had 2 here at the bottom and 3 at the top. So I can cancel out the 2 and cancel out the 3. Am I right? Yep. Yep. Okay. Now starting at the bottom, which is 35, and the 1 at the top, I'm going to cancel out the 1 here, which leaves me with 4 there. Okay? So 4 cars were at 35 miles per hour. Do I have to figure out which car was the middle of that 35? No. I just need to know that 4 cars, somewhere in the middle of those 4 cars, is that 35 miles per hour. That's my median. That's my middle value. I don't have to know if it was the blue car, the green car, the gray car, the black, that doesn't matter. I just need to know that it's 35 miles per hour is my median. So we say, okay. All right, thanks.
So then most of the
So the mode and the median are the same. Right, the mean is to add them all up and divide. Now I'm not going to ask you to do that. I want to show you how to do this as shortcut on your calculator. Okay, so turn them on. I'm going to introduce you to maybe a new place. Maybe it's old news for some of you. We're going to go to Stat and Edit. Have you been here before? Yours might say list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everybody okay so far? Great. In list 1, if you have stuff, go to the top so your black cursor is above L1 or right on L1 and push clear and enter. That's the fastest way to get rid of data. You can ignore all of that information, right? And now we're going to type in there our speeds. So 29, enter. You have to push enter after each value you are typing. Just do a quick visual. It's a short list. Make sure you didn't put in just a 2 or just a 3 because sometimes you go faster than the calculator. We're going to do the same thing for L2. So go all the way to the top until the cursor is over L2. Clear and enter to get rid of your data. That's where we put the number of cars, correct, the frequency. A real quick, easy way to check and make sure you're okay. The last 2 values should be on the same line. If they're not, then you're going to have something called a dim mismatch. It means that the rows, the columns are not filled up the same amount. Okay? All right, now let's actually do some math. That's just the entering part. We go back to Stat. It's going to be our favorite button for a couple of weeks here. And we're going to slide over to Calc. We're going to let the calculator calculate for us. Okay, we put in 2 lists of data, but we really just want to crunch 1 set of numbers. Whoa, Mrs. Inslee. Which one are you going to ignore? I'm not going to ignore either one. I'm going to have the calculator do 1 var stats, but I'm going to have it use list 1 and list 2. Let me tell you why. My list 1 is the speed the cars were going. Clearly I need that if I'm trying to get the average speed of the cars. List 2 is how many cars were traveling at that speed. So I need to know, if we had done it on our calculators, we would have done 129 plus 2 33s plus 4 34s plus 5 35s, and so on. So I need to include both sets of data. So this gets a little tricky. Let me clear my screen so you can see my heat press history. I'm going to do L1, so second and the number 1, comma, which is its own button right above the number 7, and then L2, which is second and the number 2. We got a lot of new buttons we're going to learn over the course of this week, and some next as well. When you push enter, you're going to get a slew of information.
Oh, hey, there's that extra line.
And the very first thing is the mean, correct. So our average speed was 36.1 for this set of data.
Where's the comma?
It's right above the number 7. It's all by itself. It doesn't need a second or anything.
Can we go back there?
Yes, I'd be happy to go back to the calculator.
Are any of those other symbols
Mode will not show up on your calculator, but if you see at the bottom here, there's an arrow. There's more information. If you slide down, median is there. And we're going to talk later about the 5-number summary. That's on Wednesday. And then Thursday with our box and whisker plots. And there's more numbers here that will be helpful for that. Okay? All right. Let's see if we can get a little farther in our note. Speed limit along this part of the highway is 35 miles per hour. Based on your results in Part A, is it fair to make the conclusion that the average driver does speed on this roadway? Okay? Haley, why do you say no? Okay. The average speed is over the speed limit.
But can't you go like a certain amount?
Well, no.
Well, I thought it was like in between 3 and it's 5.
Well, the trooper might not pull you over for 3 over, and people go with that. I am one of those people. But technically you are speeding. The limit is 35 and you are expected to go 35. Same thing, the rule is you wear your seatbelt and you're expected to wear your seatbelt. If you don't get caught, that doesn't mean that you're not breaking the law. It just means you didn't get caught. Okay? Could the trooper pull you over and write you for a speeding ticket for 36 and a 35? Yes.
Seriously?
Yes, you are speeding. Is it worth their time, energy? No. Okay? But could they? Yes. All right, so, but we had 2 values, 2 measures of center that were at 35. So which is better? Is the median better or the mode? And that, or excuse me, the mean, median, or mode. Which of those is the best measure of center? And I'm going to tell you right now that the mantra is the median is better to use.
Well, there's that 154. Doesn't that throw it off?
Yes, that's exactly it. Because the mean, I'm not going to use the word throws off, but yes, you're right, is pulled by the extremes. And I'll say that in a little bit less mathy terms. So most people are not speeding. The average driver is not speeding.
So was I right then?
This idea of the mean is pulled by the extremes. You know that if you are cruising right along, say at an 80, and all of a sudden you get a 0, what happens to your mean, your average grade? It's going to drop, right? You also know if you're cruising right along in an 80 and all of a sudden you get a 100, what happens to your average? It's going to go up, okay? The mean is pulled, but guess what would happen to your median grade?
It would only change a little.
It might not change at all. Okay? It may not change at all. All right, thanks for your work today. Do the best you can on the homework. Most of it's going to be review. The new stuff is the calculator and this idea of the mean is pulled by extremes.